Involved in a complex and dangerous man.
Tim Walz. I don't know who thought he was a good idea. He was like a second iteration of Tim Kaine, but even worse. He turned out to be a
Picture this. Tim Walz thinks he's playing a brilliant game of political chess, but Lindi Li just flipped the board, claimed the queen, and started juggling pawns while sipping tea. At this point, it's not politics. It's a roast, a meltdown, and a plot twist Netflix would reject for being too dramatic. If Walz thought his secrets were locked away like Fort Knox, Lindi showed up with the keys, a flashlight, and a bucket of popcorn. Buckle up, this is about to get wild.
The women's decisions to make about their healthcare decisions and the physicians who know best when they need to do this. I use this line on this, just mind your own business on this. Things work best when Roe versus Wade was in place. When we do a restoration of Roe, that works best. That doesn't preclude us.
If you're enjoying this, hit subscribe. It matters more than you think. Walz was strolling into 2025 convinced his perfectly ironed, Midwestern nice persona was invincible. He was political comfort food. Bland, predictable, but safe. Then Lindi Li crashed through his carefully curated image like a bulldozer dipped in sarcasm sharp enough to slice aged cheddar. Overnight, his clean reputation went from warm casserole to forgotten leftovers. Soft, questionable, and smelling worse by the minute.
He was trafficking in lies and conspiracies. He said that he never supported a national abortion ban. We have in writing a screenshot from his website wherein he supported a national abortion ban. So he was just lying with him.
Walz's entire political persona has always been one long branding exercise. Calm, reassuring. Everything's fine energy while the house behind him burns like a discount fireworks show. He's the type who tells you he's got everything under control as the Wi-Fi dies, the fridge wheezes, and a raccoon casually sets your shed on fire. Smooth on the surface, chaos underneath. Lindi Li didn't just expose the chaos. She pulled the curtain back so far you can't unsee it.
Who could possibly think it would be a good idea to lie about being in Tiananmen Square when you were in Nebraska? I mean, come on, it's just so beyond the pale. And now he's thinking about running for president. Didn't he get the memo that the American people do not want a second coming of Kamala Harris and Tim Walz? And Kamala is in California considering a run for governor. We do not want any more DEI woke, any of that. We just don't. We're done with the woke and trans insanity.
To understand the roast, you need to understand the costume. Walz built his persona like a political IKEA shelf. Plain, practical, and sturdy enough to hold a couple framed photos. But the moment you look too closely, everything starts wobbling. He's the friendly teacher turned governor, the neighbor you'd trust with your plants, the dad joke machine who also commands the National Guard. Charming on paper. Until you notice the mismatched screws and particle board foundation. And Lindi noticed.
Mom, and how soon was it after the election? Like
a week or two. It wasn't at that point. I was just asking questions. Like it wasn't even. I was like, what happened to the $2.5 billion we raised? Why did we spend it on Beyonce? Why did we spend 2.5? Why did we spend millions of dollars on Oprah? Like legitimate questions that needed to be answered. But the amount of hate I got for that was just overwhelming. And the final straw, the moment that I knew that I needed to leave was actually around Christmas.
She looked at Walz's record and said, "Nice mask. What's under it?" And that's when the receipts started flying. Walz presented himself as the steady hand on the wheel, but the car has swerved more times than a teenager learning stick shift. His COVID policies were a masterclass in confusion. Open, close, reopen, shrug, repeat. He sold himself as pragmatic, but half his decisions looked like he flipped a coin and called it leadership. And crime. Walz tried to straddle reform and law and order so awkwardly he slipped into both contradictions at once. Lindi didn't just point it out. She seasoned it with sarcasm and served it flaming hot.
And then the biggest tell of the evening was when he told the moderators, well, I thought the rules stipulated, or something to the effect of the rules were saying that you weren't going to fact check. And you talked about own goals. That was an own goal. That said everything.
But
so
Lindi,
he was counting on the fact that no one is going to push back.
Are you frustrated then that Walz didn't make the argument that you're making to me right now?
I think he did a really good job tonight. And we had a live focus group.
Lindi didn't poke holes in Walz's story. She shredded it into Swiss cheese. She reminded everyone that polishing your medals doesn't erase the messy choices behind them. What stings isn't just inconsistency. It's that Walz's wholesome everyman act now feels like a costume. It's like realizing your favorite indie band was actually created in a corporate boardroom to sell vinyl to suburban moms. He's the target brand candidate. Pleasant packaging, questionable authenticity. And now that he's in the national spotlight as Harris's VP pick, every little flaw that Minnesota overlooked is suddenly national news.
Rating of the night when he pointed out that Trump completely failed on the border. He didn't deliver on the border wall that he promised. He blew up the border deal that we have border as a campaign issue. So he scored really highly also when he mentioned Matthew 25 and how his faith guides and inspires his empathy for people, a quality that Trump and Vance so abundantly lack.
Responding is a trap. Ignoring her makes him look scared. Engaging her means stepping into a sarcasm storm with no umbrella. But the real twist is this. It's not just about Walz anymore. It's about a political system obsessed with image management. Walz just happens to be the latest figure caught mid-costume change. Lindi is the commentator gleefully shouting, "The emperor's new clothes don't fit." And once one person points out a crack, everyone else scrambles to see how deep it goes. Suddenly journalists, rivals, and internet sleuths are tearing into his record like it's a thriller novel.
It doesn't increase us from making sure that once that child's born, like in Minnesota, they get meals, they get early childhood education, they get health care. So the hiding behind we're going to do all these other things when you're not proposing them in your budget. Kamala Harris is proposing them. She's proposing all those things to make.
Now his team has to decide whether to triple down on the cozy cardigan persona or pretend nothing's happening. Spoiler, neither move works. When Lindi roasts you, it's not a debate. It's a full barbecue and the smoke sticks to everything. First comes the classic defense. It's out of context. But once people notice a pattern, no amount of carefully worded statements can stitch it back together. The media split fast. Some outlets still treat Walz as the friendly Midwestern uncle with a hot dish. Others smell political blood. And nothing generates clicks faster. Suddenly every compromise, contradiction, and footnote from his past is headline gold.
Feedback. I want to take you back to the very first answer that he gave. Let's just remind ourselves, he sort of stumbled through, right now the crisis in the Middle East is, front and center of the global news agenda. And we would expect maybe that someone who was running to be the vice president would have more confidence. Let's remind ourselves of what happened. October
7th, Hamas terrorists massacred over 1,400 Israelis and took prisoners. Israel's ability to be able to defend itself is absolutely fundamental. Getting its hostages back, fundamental, and ending the humanitarian crisis in Gaza.
Walz has never handled this kind of spotlight. He's used to the state-level sandbox where you can smooth things over with a smile and a folksy joke. But the national stage, it's brutal. Every gesture, every line, every photo gets dissected under studio lighting. Calm tone and fishing metaphors don't cut it anymore. Now Lindi has sharpened the lens. And the picture isn't flattering. To everyday viewers, the irony is thick. The man of the people suddenly looks like a man of the script. His persona feels over-rehearsed, tuned for ratings, not reality.
What do you think happened when he gave that answer, Lindi?
Well, as I mentioned before, J.D. Vance went to Yale Law School. He is seasoned, and I said this in the previous interview. This is what he does. He's slick and he's sharp, but Walz is a fundamentally good guy. And our focus group of battleground voters, mind you, understand that. They perceive that this is a down-to-earth guy, salt-to-the-earth guy who wants the best for the American people versus Vance, who is backed by Peter Thiel and was a venture capitalist and is working for his billionaire crony.
And Lindi just exposed how flimsy that consistency really is. It's about as sturdy as a paper straw in a hurricane. Social media turned her takedown into a meme factory overnight. Clips labeled Walz's speedrun of contradictions, spreading like wildfire. When your entire image is Midwestern nice, but your record screams Midwestern chaos, the internet doesn't patiently critique you. It amplifies every flaw to stadium speakers. Once you become a punchline, taking the joke back is nearly impossible.
I mean, I'm not on anyone's payroll. I'm not beholden to anyone. That's why I'm here telling the truth. I'm not here to gaslight anybody. This is just the truth.
What is the truth?
The truth is this is just an epic disaster. This is a $1 billion disaster. Actually, it was $1,018 million, I think, right? There were 20 million or $18 million in debt.
Right.
It's incredible.
That's what makes Lindi's approach dangerous. Nobody shares dry, boring critiques anymore. They share roasts, clips that make people laugh and think, usually in that order. That's how narratives spread now. Entertainment disguised as accountability. Meanwhile, Walz's opponents are celebrating quietly. The worst political damage isn't done by rivals. It's done by outsiders who appear unbiased. And now the Harris campaign is sweating. A VP pick is supposed to bring calm, not chaos. Walz was supposed to be the steady co-pilot. Instead, he looks like turbulence with a tie.
To explain what happened, because I told them it was a margin of error race. I was promised, Jen O'Malley Dillon promised all of us that Harris would win. She even put videos out saying that Harris would win. I believed her. My donors believed her. And so they wrote massive checks. I feel like a lot of us were misled. And even on the night of election night, I looked somebody in the eye and I said, are we going to do this? Are we going to pull it off? She told me yes. And I asked somebody else, like, how are you feeling? He's like, we're going to win Iowa. And I was like...
Before Lindi's expose, Walz barely registered on the national radar. A background character you Google once and forget. Now he's front page news. For all the wrong reasons. It's like going viral, not for your award-winning movie role, but for tripping on the red carpet. And the more he brushes it off, the worse it looks. Ignoring seems guilty. Smiling seems fake. Addressing it keeps the story alive. His brand, steady, trustworthy, down-to-earth, is unraveling under the weight of its own contradictions. Not with a scandal, not with corruption, but with exposure. A slow-motion collapse, death by 1,000 sarcastic cuts. Each one shared, reposted, and memed until the image finally breaks.
What's your take?
My take is the most neglected part of home ownership is the gutters. It's personal for me.
This is Democratic vice presidential candidate Tim Walz making an appearance on the popular TikTok show Subway Takes.
Had problems with gutters before. You get your basement wet, you get ice dams, cause a lot of problems.
How often do you like looking at gutters?
I look quite often, surprisingly, because
Like
I kind
you're
of judge
inspecting.
it. I try not to be judgmental on people, but when I see a well-tended gutter, it says a lot about